You don't know what the Nets' health is going to be. So if I have to say who is the best team, I'm going to say the 76ers.
The 76ers are the best team in the East right now. Well, the conversation last year was whether Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can coexist. People were saying, hey, look, if I had to pick one, I always said I would pick Ben Simmons.
Hey, listen, I think they're going to win the NBA title. That's been my prediction all along.
No.
Why not?
You want me to take Ben Simmons off the floor?
No, I mean, I got to ask the question.
I will pass on that one.
So enough of that argument. Go ahead.
I still like Philly in the East right now.
The evolution of Ben Simmons' game under Doc Rivers has been really fun to watch. I think they are the best team in the East today because James Harden is still hurt and not playing for the Nets today.
A coach makes a world of a difference. Can he get Embiid to play better? Can he get Ben Simmons? Yes.
I don't know how that pairing works. I think it works pretty well. Well enough to win a championship? Well enough to give up Simmons' future? I don't know.
All right, so big picture question. How good can the Sixers be this year? How far can you guys go?
I think we can win it all.
What a comeback and what a collapse by the Sixers.
I think Ben Simmons is one of, if not the most overrated players in the NBA.
Cleared out for him. Backing his way in. Spins on Gallinari. Gives it up. Oh, he was right there. And a foul as Thibault goes to the basket.
But that's when you know that the game is in your head. That's a dunk for Ben Simmons right there.
Atlanta, your Hawks are headed back to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 6 years.
Heading into the regular season and the playoffs, the Philadelphia 76ers had high but very reasonable expectations. After 3 failed attempts of making a conference finals appearance, Philadelphia as an organization looked themselves in a mirror and made some major changes not only to the roster, not only to the coaching staff, but also in the front office. Brett Brown was fired and replaced with a more experienced Doc Rivers. Daryl Morey, one of the more successful executives in the NBA over the past decade, was brought into the front office to hold a role as a president of basketball operations, and with that addition, general managers Elton Brand's promise to improve the Sixers without having to trade Embiid or Simmons was upheld. Josh Richardson and Al Horford, who was deemed untradeable, were moved in the offseason, and to replace them were sharpshooters in both Seth Curry and Danny Green. Both George Hill and Dwight Howard were brought in as competent veterans to back up the 2 stars in Embiid and Simmons, and young up-and-coming players such as Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, and fan favorite Tyrese Maxey brought some depth to a roster that had been shallow over the past 2 to 3 years. And with these changes, not only did Philly as a team improve, but also some of the core 3 players as well. Tobias Harris ended the regular season averaging nearly 20 points again while on career high efficiency. Joel Embiid was finally unlocked and was able to perform at MVP heights. And Ben Simmons, even though he may have plateaued in many regards, still was great enough to make an argument to not only be an all-star, make the all-defensive team, but also be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. By the end of the season, the Sixers had the 2nd best defense in the NBA, a respectable offense, a record of 49-23, which was good enough for the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, but most importantly, with that seeding position, they were able to avoid the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs until the conference finals. But the good news doesn't even stop there. Both the Lakers and Nuggets dealt with injuries that prevented them from making deep postseason runs. The Clippers were able to knock off the Jazz, who had the league's best record, but in the process lost Kawhi Leonard to potentially the remainder of the postseason. And the most interesting development in this postseason run is that both Kyrie Irving and James Harden dealt with injuries that left the Brooklyn Nets vulnerable to be knocked out in the 2nd round by the Milwaukee Bucks. Meaning that the relatively easy path that the Sixers had to winning a championship this year became practically effortless. And if all of that wasn't enough, in the series against the Atlanta Hawks, the Philadelphia 76ers not only led 2-1 after Game 3, but also had 2 massive leads in Games 4 and 5. But yet, here we are, and here I am making this video after the Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Hawks in Game 7. And you know what makes it even worse is that this intro that I just gave you doesn't even scratch the surface to how disappointing this postseason run was for the Philadelphia 76ers. And a lot of that disappointment, unfortunately, stems from one person.
You getting it? Hop on, man. Play one. Yeah, we need one more, man. You got time. Who do you play tomorrow?
Hawks.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Now, what I'm about to say may come across as harsh, but it is necessary, and I have no problem at all if Philly fans get upset or mad at me because of the things that I am about to say. Because the level of disappointment that Ben Simmons has just reached, in my opinion, is all-time high. And the reason why is because Ben Simmons in year 4 simply just doesn't want to improve. The flaws in Ben Simmons' game is not something that we just acknowledged for the past year or two. It's something that we all knew heading into his NBA debut. So again, I'm just confused at how we're this deep into his career and he hasn't even addressed any of them to the point where he could feel confident enough to attempt a layup, a wide open layup where he is the biggest player around the rim. Now I get it, this is a team sport, so of course there is blame to go around. Joel Embiid having an 0 for 12 half is embarrassing. Tobias Harris and the amount of money he's getting paid needs to perform better on offense. And the defensive schemes and offensive rotation needs to be better from Doc Rivers, and we'll talk about that later. The way that the Philadelphia 76ers look in the fourth quarter in the last 4 games, honestly, is historically bad. Having an offensive rating of 88.7 with a defensive rating of roughly around 115, which gives them a net rating of negative 26.6 is atrocious. And to go along with those numbers, we're talking about shooting splits that honestly I didn't even know was possible when you have this much talent on the floor. Again, all unacceptable, but these concerns are nothing more but symptoms from a bigger problem, and they are Ben Simmons. And to the people out there who continuously believe that every single time we have these discussions that we are just overreacting, please shut up. This is not an overreaction, especially when the player that we're referencing to has seen little to no improvement in the one area that everyone wants him to improve in. In a 7-game series in the fourth quarter, as you probably all know if you've been on NBA Twitter, Ben Simmons not only was limited to 3 field goal attempts, but in the last 4 games in the fourth quarter of this series, he didn't even take a shot attempt at all. And because of his historically bad performance from the charity stripe, Simmons in the fourth quarter is practically unplayable. Now, before you Ben Simmons and Sixers fans try to debate me in the comment section below, telling me about, oh, what about all the other value that Ben Simmons brings to this team outside of scoring? Well, I beg to differ, especially in the fourth quarter on offense. I'm actually surprised that no one has brought this up, but if you actually watch the games and you watch Ben Simmons in the fourth quarter in a game 7 in which this team needed some productivity out of him since he isn't going to do anything else when he has a ball in his hands, you can clearly see Ben Simmons doesn't do anything. He runs to the block, he stands stills, and he doesn't even attempt to get any position. He doesn't attempt to rebound. He doesn't attempt to be aggressive. He doesn't attempt to seal and try to get an easy layup. He doesn't do anything. It's so pathetic that John Collins and Gallinari are literally boxing him out with one hand. You're telling me that's something? You telling me that's effort? You believe that's aggressive? You believe it's worth paying Ben Simmons north of $30 million for the next 4 years because you're going to receive this type of effort in the fourth quarter of a game 7? Are you serious? Please, let's stop babying Ben Simmons, because every single time we have this conversation, you're either overreacting or you don't know his value. Stop it. I've seen it. This is now the 4th year in a row where it has been on display. I'm just not blind. I'm willing to call it like I see it. Ben Simmons has to go, and that's an understatement. But here's the bigger problem, and here's where the Sixers organization may actually be a bigger loser than Simmons this postseason run. The Sixers, within a year's time alone, had the opportunity to move Simmons 3 different times and refused to. And now here we are with another early exit from the Sixers, and the Simmons proposals have gone from receiving James Harden in return to CJ McCollum in return, and some people even argue that's too much because they should be looking at D'Angelo Russell in return. But regardless of what the Sixers may receive, even if it's D'Lo or if they get lucky enough to receive someone like Damian Lillard, it has to be done. Sixers fans, stop telling me that the defense is going to fall off significantly because Ben Simmons isn't on the team anymore. You have 2 other all-defensive players on the roster, and if Doc Rivers cannot get this team to be a competent defensive unit because Ben Simmons isn't on the court anymore, then guess what? Doc Rivers needs to be fired. Also, Please stop telling me how you have to have somebody who's a ball handler and a creator for everyone else, because I just watched 4 straight fourth quarters where Ben Simmons couldn't even handle the ball. So his ability to be a playmaker is pointless down the stretch of any important and pivotal game if they're just going to foul him and send him to the free throw line.
You want me to take Ben Simmons off the floor?
No, I mean, I got to ask the question.
I will pass on that one. He's pretty good, so I'll pass on that suggestion.
Now, in this part of the video, I'm going to be short because I don't really like criticizing coaches too much because I'm pretty sure they know way more about the game of basketball than I do. But more importantly, Doc Rivers has only been head coach for the Philadelphia 76ers for 1 year, and there are a lot of things that are wrong with this Sixers organization from the top to bottom that are just out of his control, and he was dealt in many ways a bad hand. However, the track record for Doc as a coach in the postseason is very embarrassing. And honestly, I might just have to make a separate video detailing all of the collapses, the blown leads, and just the poor decisions that Doc Rivers has made continuously throughout his coaching career. But in this series in particular, yet again, Doc Rivers was completely outcoached. Not only did the Sixers struggle mightily offensively in the fourth quarter, but if it wasn't a Joel Embiid post-up or a Seth Curry pin-down screen, honestly, the lack of imagination from Doc Rivers when it comes to offensive schemes showed its ugly head once more. And again, to give Coach Rivers some slack here, there was some problems with this roster before he arrived. But when the question is proposed to you to take Ben Simmons off of the floor because how much of an offensive liability that he is to your team, that should not be pushed to the side. That is not something that should be laughed at. That is something that you have to take into serious consideration, especially because not only is he giving you literally nothing on the offensive end, not even boxing out for offensive rebounds, but defensively, he's giving you very little in certain situations as well because the way that you are organizing the defense. Huge shout out to Nick McMillan because I do believe his offensive schemes down the stretch of practically every fourth quarter exposed the lack of adjustments of Doc Rivers. And a great game to point out is Game 5 where Lou Williams started to go off and Ben Simmons isn't found at all. The reason why is because Nick McMillan acknowledged that Ben Simmons is guarding Trae Young, so in the offense, Trae Young was just positioned to be in the corner. No adjustments from Doc Rivers meant that Ben Simmons was just standing off in the corner, far removed from any offensive action that was happening from Atlanta, and because of this, Lou Williams was able to just go off. And that is only one of a plethora of very questionable decisions that I saw from Doc Rivers throughout this entire series. Again, I don't want to give too much flack to Doc Rivers because I personally believe the inability to coach this team down the stretch is just a symptom of how bad of a player Ben Simmons is. But some of the decision making was questionable, concerning, and adjustments have to be made, especially when you're going up against a team that you statistically beat in practically every single category, and yet you still lost this series just because of the lack of fourth quarter execution, which heavily depends on what we see from the coaching and the decision making from the sideline.
Doc, you think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
So I guess the big question that I believe everyone wants me to answer is, what's next for Philly? And from that question, I decided to wait and to see what the masses believe what is the next step for the Sixers. And the fact that there's so many people split on this decision, quite honestly, is disturbing. Trading Ben Simmons isn't a suggestion, it is necessary. It's something that not only needs to happen, but should have happened last year. But since we are here now, the Sixers have no other choice, and really for 3 main reasons. A, this is an organization that has already committed north of $125 million next year, and that's with them losing Danny Green. Trading someone is really the only way that they can get better. Second, to the people out there who believe that Philly should just hold on to Simmons because his trade value is at an all-time low and you're not going to receive anything of value in return, I tell you that you are still overvaluing Ben Simmons. The reality is that even if we were unrealistically optimistic that Ben Simmons' trade value could increase back to where it was at the beginning of the season, where we were entertaining James Harden trades, the only player of that caliber who could possibly be moved is Damian Lillard, third. So why even run that risk? Why put all your chips in the table for a hypothetical transaction that might not even happen, since there is more likely other teams in the NBA who would offer better trade packages than a package that is led with Ben Simmons? It just doesn't make any sense. But third and finally, the Sixers don't have any more time. Not only are we talking about an Eastern Conference that is consistently improving, but Joel Embiid only has 2 more years on his contract. Why would you waste any more time in Joel Embiid's career when we all know his window of opportunity is extremely slim due to reoccurring injuries? But hey, those are just my thoughts. Please let me know what you think about the Ben Simmons situation in the comment section below. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Twitch. Both links will be in the description so you can keep up to date with everything that I'm doing related to basketball. And finally, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you can be updated on all the videos that I upload on this channel. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.